One of the first tattoos I got on my wrist says, "Do the work." And I got it as a reminder that you can have all the insights in the world, but if you do not apply them, they will not change your life.
Take your turn and go. Look after yourself.
I think everybody needs like a reorientation with the unknown.
Don't kneecap yourself by calling yourself names.
Why don't we practice friendship?
And I see this podcast in the same way. You can watch or listen to it every week and hopefully be entertained and have many aha moments from what our guests share.
I always say nothing haunts us like the things we don't say.
But unless you take those aha moments and turn them into action, your life probably won't change or get better. And that is totally fine if you're just here to be inspired or entertained. But for those of you that are here to grow, to change, to break free of whatever is holding you back, I feel it is my responsibility and honor to give you this very special episode of No Magic Pill. Chris, so happy to have you here.
Yes, amazing.
Today, I'm joined by my very good friend, Chris Orwig, where we will revisit the most powerful moments and lessons learned from No Magic Pill.
I wish we were more curious about ourselves.
When we're living healthy lives and happy lives, we do have access to peace, contentment, and the capacity for delight.
So this is not a recap or highlight show, but more a deeper exploration of what hit me and Chris the hardest and how we have been integrating the insights into our mental wellness journeys.
Kristin and Neff talked about this idea of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. One of them is like, I have to do this.
Yes.
And the other one is, I get to do this.
Yes. I hope this discussion between me and Chris will help you take some of the big ideas and put them into practice today. Chris, so happy to have you here.
Yes, amazing.
This is awesome, man.
Yeah.
I've been looking forward to this one. I mean, I think we should give everyone a little context of how we met. It was a little over a year ago. I cold called you because I had this idea for this birthday project. So for those who have not heard me talk about this yet, I'm turning 50 this year, and I had this idea that I want to travel around the world and take a portrait of all the people who had the biggest influence on my life. You know, coming out of depression, I was feeling very grateful, very inspired, and I want to get back to something that I loved, and that was photography, but I had never ever trained to do portrait photography. So I Google like top portrait photographer in California, and you pop up, and I find out that you live like 5 minutes from me, and I sent you an email that was a cold call, and what happened next?
Yeah, well, first backing up a little bit from my perspective, I was driving around in Santa Barbara, and I saw this tree that reminded me of the Tom's guy. And I thought to myself, I wonder what the Tom's guy is doing. And a lot of us knew you as the Tom's guy, right?
Sure.
Because you were doing good in the world, having impact. You pursued all your passions, and there was a lot of interest and admiration around that. So I said that to myself. And then the next morning, when I opened up my email, there was an email from you. It was incredible. Right?
I love when the universe just like gives such a clear sign.
Yes, yeah, like no doubt. I like opened the email and I'm like, oh my gosh, is anyone seeing this? You know?
Yeah.
And then we set up a 45-minute call. It turned into 4 hours. We did not talk about photography at all.
No.
But we connected on a really deep soul level. And it truly was this gift from the universe. And it provided so much fire and healing and much more.
Yeah. Well, it's been a great journey, not just doing the birthday project, but launching Enough and now the podcast. And so I'm so excited to dig in. So where do you want to start?
Well, I want to start with the moment where McConaughey talks about this idea of being really curious about ourselves.
Sometimes people have trouble spending time with ourselves, alone with ourselves, even 30 seconds or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I wish we were more curious about ourselves.
Yeah.
And that led to this idea of going on a date with yourself.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you about that in a second. But I want to highlight this idea that sometimes we're at places in our life where maybe we're feeling lonely and isolated.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're feeling perhaps just alone. It's a little bit neutral. Or sometimes we have this deep desire and need for connection.
Yeah.
At that moment in your life, you had desire for connection.
Yeah.
Yet as you started to heal, and as you heard these words from Matthew, in a way, it was saying, hey, what about disconnection?
Totally. Yeah.
Disconnection from the noise.
Yeah.
and reconnection with self.
Yeah.
So tell me about how that landed for you, and then what experiment you did, and what was that like?
Totally. I mean, when McConaughey was talking about the need to spend some time alone, which he's done a lot in his mental wellness journey that he really talks a lot about in the episode, I realized that in my desire to move away from all the isolation, I had like maybe over-indexed on the connection. Now, every day of my life, I was connecting with so many people. I was doing so many things that it really hit me like, oh, maybe I actually do need to spend a little time alone to reconnect with myself. And so I did what he challenged, people to do on the show is like, go to dinner by yourself. Have a date with yourself. And I took it very seriously. I literally got a hotel room in Berkeley, about 45 minutes from where I live. I got all dressed up. I got my journal. I made a reservation at a super fancy restaurant for one, and I went and had a date with myself. And I would say the thing that I got the most out of it was, and this might sound a little cheesy, but I told my partner this day where I said, I love spending time with you and I love all my friends, but I really love myself. Like, I'm fun.
Yeah.
I was like, I really like who I am today. And it was and it really was a great part of my healing. And not everyone might have that same experience, but for me, it was a reminder that like my own company is pretty good. And it also helped me find freedom because I think because I was so afraid of being alone, because when I was alone in the depression, it was really scary.
Yeah.
And so I just needed people to be around just to be safe.
Yes.
But then now that I've really healed from that, I was like, oh, I'm totally fine being alone. I could go do the Camino Trail by myself next year. Now, I love doing it with Alejo, but I could go do it by myself, and I would be just fine.
Yes.
And so that gives me more strength in my mental wellness journey.
I love that. So then what is the tip or the takeaway or the action step? I mean, if you were to give someone advice, they hear McConaughey say that, you share that. How can someone implement that? What are some ways? I mean, obviously
I think you do it. I literally think if you're watching this or listening to this, go to dinner by yourself, not just lunch, because a lot of people eat lunch by themselves and are rushing through it between office, between work. Like, actually get dressed up, like respect yourself by looking nice, get a haircut beforehand, and go to dinner by yourself and take a journal. I do think that was something I was glad that I did. And obviously, that you told me a quote earlier that when we were working out today about Blaise Pascal.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you have that quote?
I do.
Okay.
All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone.
Yeah, I've heard that quote many times. I think Ram Dass, Rick Rubin, several people who I love have said that over the years. But I do think there is some real truth to that. Like, it's important, and I think that's what McConaughey was saying, is like, it's important to get comfortable being by yourself, just to kind of check in and make sure that you're still being the self that you really want to be.
Yeah, I love that. I think just tying an idea to that is, we've talked about this before, but that self-awareness and awareness is really one of the first steps of healing.
Totally.
And we can gain awareness from others, of course. We'll talk more about that later, community, connection, friendship, and all of that. But there's a certain kind of awareness that we can only gain when we quiet down the noise, when we pause and we go inward. I love how our good friend, Young Pueblo, or Diego, puts it. He says something like, the inward journey is the only journey. And it seems like that kind of activity creates space for that.
Yeah, and I call it the inner adventure for me. I love it. And because I'm an adventurous.
Of course. Yes.
I mean, here's the funny thing. I was with my son's summit this past weekend, and I was sitting there on the plane with him. We were going to New York, and I said, Summit, how would you describe me to your friends? I was just curious. I wasn't planning on asking this question. I said there. He goes, I would tell them you're the most adventurous person I know and very kind. And I was like,
my gosh.
I was like, I'm good. I was like such a compliment. I was like, and I think you nailed it. Yes. It was so great. But I bring that up because when I think about going inward, I think of it as in some ways like the last great adventure. You know, after you've climbed the mountains, built the company, done this, had the family, and I think that's why, you know, on the happiness curve that Chip Conley talks about, which we'll probably get into, is after about age 45, which is the lowest part on the happiness curve, you start seeing an increase on the happiness curve in 50s, 60s, 70s, all the way to the end. And it's because I think people start shifting their perspective of what adventures they're chasing. And they start going more inward. And I think that there's just endless adventures between these years.
Things that we can discover that we didn't know were there. And what comes to mind for me is this great quote by Martin Buber. And he says that all journeys have secret destinations of which the traveler is unaware.
I like that.
And I like it in regards to travel. You go somewhere thinking you're going to see certain things, but it's the surprises, the unexpected. Those are really the gems, right?
Yeah, totally.
And in this inward journey or adventure, the same is true. So maybe flipping that back to you, when you go inward or maybe on that date with yourself, what are things that surprised you?
I mean, I think one of the biggest things that surprised me, and this might be sad, is that I really like myself. I was like giggling.
Yes.
I was like, wow, I really like my own company. Like, I'm totally fine being by this day. I thought it was going to be hard. I did it kind of in trepidation a little bit, and kind of a little bit like feel a responsibility to actually practice some of the things that we learned in the show. But that really, I think, did surprise me the most. Yeah.
And maybe just to play with that for a second, I think for a large part of my life, I had this feeling that if I were to look deep, deep, deep within myself, that you wouldn't like what you found, and I didn't like what I found. And so I didn't have that kind of self-acceptance. And so when I would spend time with myself, and when it was really quiet, I would feel that sense of self-rejection.
Yes, totally.
So I've definitely grown a lot through that, but that's still something. I think you've talked about this with wounds. Wounds can still be there. You can be healed, but there's an echo or residue of that. So I'll say there's a residue of that wound still inside of me.
Yeah, no, I think. I mean, I think that's. You're not alone in that. I think anyone watching or listening would say. I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people don't do therapy. Or they might not work with a psychedelic medicine or anything that might open their mind or their heart to something that they've really put way down in there because they're afraid of what they'll find. And so I don't know where I was reading this. It's kind of bumming me. I can't remember, but it was basically something to that effect of what keeps someone from doing this work and really excavating what might be underneath this is they're too afraid that they won't be able to handle it. But what I believe, and maybe this was Paul Conti that was saying this, and that's where I'm bringing it up from, but is that it's going to affect you no matter what. If you have some real trauma there, if you have some deep shame, it is affecting you whether you speak it out loud or not. And it is affecting so many aspects of your life. And so doing the shadow work, really looking at it is actually, no matter how hard it is a step towards freedom.
For someone who is afraid to do that date with themselves. To really go inward and explore what's there, whether that's a capital T trauma, lowercase t trauma, a sense of loneliness, loss, isolation. What would you say to that person?
Man, it's tough. I wouldn't pretend that it's easy, but I would say that it is freeing. It really is. That's the honest truth, you know? I wish I could say something better or more comforting, or here's 3 steps, or you find this right therapist or this. But the truth is it's often really, really hard to look at some of those things. But I think the key to all healing is really about forgiving yourself. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
There are parts of your life today you probably haven't forgiven yourself from.
Yeah.
And I think you have to continue to forgive yourself. And so I know for me in my journey, a lot of what helped me through the depression, a lot of what helped me kind of put my life back together again was continuously forgiving myself.
Yes.
Not saying that what I did was not wrong.
Yeah.
I made some big mistakes. I
Sure.
hurt some people. I did things that I am ashamed of.
Yeah.
But instead of holding that shame anymore, I've said, you know what? I'm a human.
Right.
With the information that I had in that moment, I
Yeah.
made the best decision I could.
Yes.
And looking
Yes.
back, that decision wasn't a great one.
Yeah.
But I forgive myself. And the more that I do that, the more free I can be. And the
Yes.
more it's easy to look at those hard things, which then ultimately releases that energy. And so it's not affecting you.
Yeah. Back to the challenge of going inward and the difficulty of that. I like how Kristin Neff in her episode, she talked about self-compassion and this idea of feeling enough.
Self-compassion means we're kind and supportive to ourselves. We ask ourselves, what do I need to be well in this moment?
She has these 3 things she talks about self-compassion, that it involves mindfulness, so an awareness,
Okay.
first part of healing. Next is kindness and warmth, care.
Yeah.
And the third is commonality, or common humanity.
Yes.
Talk to me about
I
how-
love the third one. I mean,
Yeah.
when I was sitting there with Kristin, we did that interview in Austin, Texas, and in this amazing studio, by the way. It was when she talked about the commonality piece. That was the piece I was not expecting.
Yeah.
I understood, the care and the awareness. That made a lot of sense when I heard compassion. But then the commonality was really the icing on top. And I think it's why she's such a smart researcher and therapist, is that once you realize you're not the only person that feels this way, and a lot of people feel this way, and a lot of people have made that same mistake, and I'm not the first guy to ever get divorced, I mean, whatever, then you can really forgive yourself. Because you're not just forgiving yourself, you're kind of acknowledging that this is just part of the human experience for a lot of people. And I think that was a really important step that I wasn't anticipating her saying, but the more that I practice that, the better I feel about whatever I'm kind of going through.
And then playing with that a little bit, with the commonality of all these different guests, different walks of life, there were some things that kept reoccurring. What were some of those reoccurring themes that you discovered? I mean, meaning like, let's say Kevin Love, all the awards, that achievement wouldn't fill the void, you know, right? Or what were those?
I mean, I think the achievement myth is a really big one. I talk a lot about this on Instagram and TikTok, and it's something that has been a big part of my journey of starting to feel enough and really grounding in that. But I think that we are all programmed to believe that if we achieve, if we obtain, if we accomplish, we will be enough and we will feel enough and things will be good. And oftentimes the greatest pain in someone's life comes after they get the thing that they wanted and they realize it actually doesn't change anything. And I experienced this when I sold Toms. Kevin Love experienced this when he won an NBA championship. Matthew McConaughey experienced this after A Time to Kill. I mean, we heard this, Chip Conley after he sold his company. I mean, like, we heard this over and over again. And I think this is the thing that as parents, I think that if we can really, really reinforce with our kids is like, have ambition, have goals, go for it. Like, I'm still super ambitious, but I'm not saying if we hit 1,000 subscribers with morning water, that's going to make me feel any different. I can celebrate it and it's fun and it's exciting to be an entrepreneur again and building something of value. But that one thing, we hit 1 million subscribers on YouTube with no magic pill, like, it would be something to celebrate. But if you put your belief that achievement is going to provide something on a deep, deep level that you're missing in your own kind of inner practice, you're going to be disappointed. And that's why you see people who've achieved great things by society standards are oftentimes the biggest fall is right after. Because at that moment, when the money hits the bank, I hear this all the time with entrepreneurs who have huge exits. The wire hits. And the next day was the worst day of my life.
And I think I'd love that we're bringing this up, because if someone's feeling that, back to what Kristin Neff says, is you realize I'm not alone.
This is not. There's no shame in this.
This isn't one of one. This is one of many. And there's no shame. This is something. But then we have to do is turn into it. Lean into it. Look into it. Go inward. And say, why?
Yeah.
And so for you, when you experienced that, why did you feel like the achievement didn't fill the void?
Well, I think it just didn't. I mean, I don't know if there's a why. I actually think that maybe divinely it's designed not to, because when it doesn't fill the void, it forces you to go inward.
Yeah,
and that's when the inner adventure begins, not the external adventure. And so I almost feel like if there's a why as to why it doesn't work, I think it was designed not to work. You know, it was kind of like, I talked about this in the McConaughey episode when Ted Turner, right?
Yeah.
Ted Turner tells me, he said, "Hey Blake, it looks like you're going to climb the mountain. And I think you got what it takes to climb the mountain. And at the top of that mountain, there's a gold chest. And as you climb, you're going to get closer and closer to that chest. And I'm going to tell you, when you get to the top of the mountain, you're going to look in that chest, Blake, and that chest is going to be empty. And even though I just told you it's going to be empty, you still got to go climb that mountain." And then we went on stage. And so that's the same thing as I think it might be designed. Achievement might be designed to not fulfill what you think it's going to fulfill. So then you have to go inward and not, be constantly looking outside yourself.
Amazing. So Kevin Love talked a lot about men.
Yeah.
And how men tend to bury emotion.
We've always been celebrated for like beating our emotions into submission. Like we just bury it or just beat it down and like, look at me. It's almost like when people are like, well, I didn't sleep at all last night. Look at me. Or I got 4 hours of sleep. It's like, dude, that's not cool. And trust me, as you get older, it's not cool.
Really
it's not fucking
good.
cool.
Yeah.
And the emotions, like, you get asked, "Oh, how are you feeling? Like, how are you really feeling?" Where it was like, I've always done this too. It's I feel fine. And then the other extreme is like, I feel angry. And there's like no other words or no other language to be able to express yourself. Like, no, I feel this way.
I'm wondering if sometimes in our pursuit of achievement, if we bury emotions and we get to the end of achievement and we haven't quite, like you said, done the inner work or gone on the inner adventure. And it's almost, well, maybe I'll speak in my own life. There's times where I've pursued things, and in the pursuit, I've neglected or overlooked other important habits. And so I almost wonder if there's a moment of, well, I guess what I'm searching for here is how then do we drive for something and do it well?
I'm glad you asked this question because I'm pretty much dedicating my life to it right now. So I get a second chance as an entrepreneur, and that is doing it again with several different companies and this podcast, but doing it from a place of feeling enough. So all my life up until 2 years ago, I was driven from not feeling enough, from lack, from scarcity, from needing to prove myself so that I would get the love and appreciation and validation of others and even myself.
Right.
After this amazing healing that I've had and really using like the bracelet and the mantra as a daily practice that I am enough as just as I am, I get the opportunity to still swing for the fences, but from a place of generative creativity, giving my gifts to the world as an entrepreneur or as a host of this podcast, whatever. But I can, it's a practice, but my hope is that I get to do it, and I feel like I'm getting to do it from a place of wholeness. And when you do it from that, it's just so much more fun. Now, some people could be listening or watching, be like, well, that's easy for you. You made a bunch of money, Right. Of course you can do it. But I think this goes back to what Kristin Neff said.
Yeah.
Kristin Neff said, feeling enough and really being self-compassionate is not for someone who's mediocre or the weak. They did a study with NCAA. And they basically took two groups of athletes, all NCAA athletes, so amazing performers, right? Top of the game.
Yeah.
And half of them, they let them continue to have their inner critic. They let them continue to kind of beat themselves up when they miss a shot, really get hard on them, practice harder when they lost the game, just really, really tough love with themselves and being an inner critic. Then the other half, Kristin trained herself to be an inner coach, to have self-compassion, to be rooted in that they're enough whether they win the game, make the shot, or whatever. Over time, the ones that were not driving themselves through pressure and inner criticism, but were actually giving themselves compassion and knowing that they're enough whether they win or lose, actually started to perform better.
Yeah. Here's a tip too. I've seen you implement this, and you hinted at it with what you just said, but Kristin Neff talked about this idea of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
It's a basic tenet in psychology. So intrinsic motivation is you do something because you want to, because you would like, because it fulfills your goals or your values, or you're excited to do it. Extrinsic motivation is you're doing it because you want to appear good to others, or because you feel other people are demanding of you and you don't want to disappoint them, or it might be like the social norms. Sure. That's extrinsic motivation.
The two different motivations is one of them is like, I have to do this.
Yes.
And the other one is, I get to do this.
Yes.
And the get to do this changes everything.
It changes everything. It absolutely changes everything. Hello, everyone. I decided not to take advertisers for this first season of No Magic Pill. Instead, I want to use a break to talk about a few things that have had a huge impact on my mental wellness journey. The first thing I spoke about in my episode with Michael Pollan. It's an AI therapy app called Sonia. Now, I was super skeptical when I first heard about this, but I met the founders at a mental health conference. They encouraged me to try it. They said it was HIPAA compliant, totally secure. I've been using it for 6 months now. I still have my therapist, but I don't know about you, but like at 4 a.m. when I wake up with a ton of anxiety, or I'm up late at night ruminating about something I wish I hadn't said, like my therapist isn't available at those times of day. So that's when I go with Sonia, and it has had such a huge impact on my mental health. So the company just launched, it's in the Apple App Store, and they let you try it free for a couple of weeks. So whether you have a therapist or not, it can be so helpful. I've told all my friends about this. My dad's using it, my sister-in-law, and I'm even using it like a life coach as well as a therapist. Like I tell it like, hey, send me a text on Mondays and Wednesdays and make sure that I'm actually in the gym. So I want to show a real short clip of me actually using Sonia so you can get a feel for it.
I'm here. What's on your mind right now?
I'm just feeling a little stressed about things right now because I feel like I've got so much going on and I really don't know how to prioritize it.
When everything stacks up at once, it can blur what actually matters and make that old not enough story get louder. Let's slow this down by picking one thread to start with, what feels most pressing in this moment. The important reframe is this. The projects did not cure the depression. They arrived because you healed. And when you overwork to prevent relapse, you actually undermine the things that keep you well, like sleep, presence, movement, and connection. When that edge shows up, it is a signal to reduce load and restore choice, not to push harder.
Kristin also talked about this idea of compassion, self-compassion, that can be tender, which is of accepting yourself. And she had another way of talking about it, that it can be fierce.
Yes.
And the fierce is this type of self-compassion which isn't passive. It isn't saying, oh, I made a mistake. That's okay. Yeah. I'm just going to sit here and do nothing. But instead it asks, is there anything I can do differently?
Yeah.
So how do those two qualities of self-compassion show up in your life in real time?
I mean, I'll show you a great example of that is in parenting.
Yeah.
You know, when I was really depressed and going through a hard time, I was just not there for my kids in the way that I wanted to be. And as I started to feel better and starting to repair those relationships, I had to be tender with myself because I had to accept the fact that, you know, I was on 4 different pharmaceuticals. I was in a really challenging situation. There was a lot of things that were happening that just made it almost impossible to be present with them.
Right.
And that was the tender compassion.
Yes.
Now, as I started to feel better, I had to have fierce compassion, which came actually in this interview with Gabor Mate. That episode, I think, is going to air very soon. Yes. And I'm telling you, if that was one of the most intense interviews I've done on No Magic Pill, because he called me out on it.
And you've done a lot of work on yourself. Now, I would say, Blake, though, that it's not what you told him that made the difference, but how you showed up that made the difference.
He's like, look, you're feeling better. You know, you now have the opportunity to really show up for them. And even though you have this passion around the Enough movement and this show and you're helping people, like, do not let that distract you from your number one goal, and that is making sure that you're there for these kids at this time. And so I've had to have fierce compassion of like, hey, you get a hall pass. This happened, so don't beat yourself up with shame.
Yes.
But also, like make sure that you don't miss that basketball game. Yeah. Or make sure that, you really, put the time in, after dinner and not just let the kids numb out on their devices.
Another thing that helped you rewrite that story was connection.
Yeah.
And that sometimes the inner critic in our voice is just too loud. It's too much to handle on our own.
Yes.
In Chip's episode, he talked about driving to the Golden Gate Bridge.
I was on my way driving to the Golden Gate Bridge to jump. I was at that point 48. So this was actually after my flatline experience, but it was my relationship had ended. My son, who had been in jail, now was in San Quentin. I just I was feeling like a failure.
I know in your life you've often talked about our mutual friend Mark Fujiwara.
Yeah.
And you reached out to him.
Yeah.
We had another friend you just shared just today who shared with you about something hard. But it's there's some things we just can't handle on our own. Yes. So sometimes, yes, go on a date by yourself. But sometimes,
no,
that's the wrong idea.
It's the wrong idea.
And when the inner critic is that loud and that strong, we desperately, desperately need connection.
Yeah.
And I love how Chip talks about friendship, and maybe we'll talk about that in a second. But with that connection, talk to me about your own experience or your reflection on Chip sharing his when he made that call.
Yeah.
Or you calling Mark. Mm-hmm. And then help us understand how we can take that step if we really need to.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought this up because it's probably the most, from a research perspective, it is the greatest reduction in self-harm comes from someone just acknowledging that those thoughts are in their head to at least one more person.
Yeah.
So like right there, I mean, if you hear nothing else in this episode, if you're listening or watching and you're struggling, like there's not a magic pill, but the closest thing to a magic pill, if you are really, really deeply suffering, is talking to one person about it. Because the minute you talk to them, the minute you connect, the minute they can reflect back and you can start to see, the trees within the forest. Mm. And so I think that for me, every time I shared how bad it was with someone, and especially those who allowed me to feel that way, Tyler Ramsey, our good friend, was one of them.
Yeah.
It lost some of its power. It really did. And so whether you are a person potentially suffering or someone that's suffering, I think having that ability to be there for someone, or to the confidence or the courage to share with someone is so important. And again, like we said at the beginning of the episode, it's not easy, So I'm not pretending that if you've never shared with someone that you're having suicidal thoughts and you're going to share that's going to be an easy thing to do.
Right.
It's very hard. It's very scary. You don't know if you'll be judged or if they'll try to lock you up somewhere. I mean, there's all kinds of stigma that is causes people to not share.
Right.
But I do know from the research that I've done and from every kind of person that I've ever talked to in this space, it's so vitally important that you can connect with someone and share, and then that person can help carry the load so you're not just carrying it yourself.
Sometimes I think we carry things and we think, well, I'll be stoic, I'll just repress this, I'll just stuff this down, it'll go away.
Yeah.
But I think back to what Kevin Love's whole message was about, like it doesn't disappear, it accumulates. It almost grows a little bit.
I always say nothing haunts us like the things we don't say.
Yeah.
That's the quote he said in that episode, and it really stuck with me.
Another part of this whole mental health thing and all we're doing with Enough is being that person for other people.
Sure.
And one of the biggest things we can do is presence.
Yes.
It's not fix, it's not lecture, not all that, but just be present.
Which I would say is harder for men than women. number one.
Yeah.
Just my observation. Men typically want to fix, change, find a solution.
Right.
And move to that, much quicker than women.
Yeah.
So it's something that I'm having to learn, like oftentimes even with my kids, whenever they're upset, I want to stop them from being upset.
Yes.
But sometimes you just got to be present and allow the emotion of them being upset to pass.
Yes.
And it will take care of itself. And this might sound crazy at first, but this year I met some engineers from Nike who invented a new type of office chair that has not only changed my life, but actually saved my back, especially because I am on about 5 hours of Zoom calls every day. The Moovlab chair has 2 different pivot points under the seat, which keeps your body in continuous micro movements all day. The founders told me it is the equivalent of taking 3,000 steps. And all the lubrication of your joints and the blood flow is why my back no longer hurts. And I can focus on my work so much better. I loved it so much that I actually joined the team as a co-founder. And I will be sending one to every person I know when we launch this fall. If you're interested in learning more or pre-ordering one, we only have 500 in the first run. You can check us out at moovlab.com. And that's spelled MOOVLAB.com. I decided not to take advertising for the first season of No Magic Pill, so I could actually use these moments to talk about something I'm super passionate about. Now, one of those things is my morning routine. And every morning it starts the same way. I drink morning water. I take this packet, I pour it into this bottle, and I drink it. Now, what's in this packet? It has creatine, L-theanine, magnesium, many other supplements, electrolytes, basically all the things that I used to have to take so many supplements for. I mean, my kitchen counter, it looked like a pharmacy. I mean, it had bottles of pills and pills and pills, and half the time I would even forget to take them. So now it's all in this simple formula that my friend Austin created, and I do it every day. And this month, I'm inviting everyone to do it with me. We're having this thing called the Morning Water Challenge. Now, basically, you can sign up between now and June 17th. We'll all do it in July, and everyone that completes it will get a free month of morning water. If you want to be part of it with me, and I promise you, you are going to feel amazing. I did when I tried it the first time. Just go to morningwater.co/challenge.
I love how in the episode, Alexi talks about friends and how she had these friends that just showed up.
My friend Anne, I wrote about in the book, knew I needed to buy a wedding dress. And she was like, we're going to go buy that dress. I ended up postponing the wedding and everything. But she didn't say hey, crazy girl. She was just I'm going to pick you up at 10. We're going to Portland and we're going to go dress shopping and I will bring you a juice.
And I feel like you had friends like that too. I want to say Andrew was we're going on a bike ride.
Yeah.
And so I think there's benefit to kind of learn more about how to be that friend to someone who is struggling. So what advice would you give to someone who has a friend who's struggling?
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought this up. So I've learned a lot from my friends, and I have some really great friends. But one of my friends is a guy named Pat Dossett. He was a Navy SEAL, one of the brightest guys I know, incredibly loyal, and he really knows how to be a great friend. And one of the things that Pat told me that he learned by being on the teams is you don't ask someone that's suffering how you can help them. You just start helping them. Because someone who is suffering will almost always say, I'm good, I don't need help, I'm doing fine. That's just how we're, and especially men.
Yeah.
And so he says, you just show up. You just, like Alexi, in my episode of Alexi Pappas, she talks about the friends that just said, we're going dress shopping. So I think the most important thing I can say there is what I learned from Pat, and that is literally when you see someone is having a hard time, you just act. You just show up. You just help with the groceries. You just take them to a doctor's appointment. You just whatever. Because if you ask them, they're often going to say, I'm fine.
Yeah. And it seems like with your friends that did that for you, they didn't necessarily say, let's go on a bike ride and let's talk about your deepest, darkest feelings and emotions and all that kind of stuff. They just said, let's go ride.
Yeah.
In a way, Chip talks about this. You're a shoulder-to-shoulder friend at that point. And guys really thrive in that situation. Guys love to go do stuff together.
Yeah. And also I just think when you're struggling, moving your body can be, one thing that can get you some momentum. You know, McConaughey talks about this idea of one in a row on the show, right?
Yes,
and I love that episode with McConaughey when he talks about that, because it really is. Sometimes you just need a tiny bit of momentum to get that one in a row.
Yes.
And oftentimes, especially for guys, but for all people, it can be a physical movement. Literally by moving, you start building some momentum.
Yes. Let's go into the other side of friendship. One of the things I admire about you is you are really good at cultivating friendships. And I remember we were on a surf trip and I said, Blake, okay, give me the wisdom on how to develop and cultivate friendships. Because you have these friendships you've had for years and years. In particular with guys. What, from your perspective, are ways that all of us can practice being a better friend, cultivate friendships? Chip called us to do that in that episode. He said, being a friend is like a muscle. And by the time we hit middle age, that muscle is atrophied. And a lot of guys don't know how to make friends.
To build it,
So how do we do that?
Yeah, so one thing that I think I encourage people to do in the episode with Chip, because I got several men that did it to me after the episode came out, is make a video note and send it to someone. If you're thinking of someone and they've made a difference in your life, don't just file that away. I'll tell it to them next time I see him, or don't just send them a text. Literally, open your phone, look the camera straight in the eyes, which will be in their eyes, and tell that person, hey, you really mean something to me. You really have been there for me. That is amazing what it does to foster a deeper relationship and friendship. And so that's just one little hack that came in that episode.
There
were several others. I think one of the things that has led me to having such deep friendships is vulnerability. I have been really vulnerable, and not often with the whole group of my friends. You've met my kind of group. We call it the Rugged Adventure Club. We've been doing these trips and friends for now, over 19 years. I'm often not super vulnerable with the entire group, but I'm very vulnerable one-on-one. And so I think that also creates a deeper friendship, because when I'm vulnerable, then it gives them permission to be vulnerable. And when two people are vulnerable, I don't know what the science says, but I guarantee they have a deeper relationship. And so that's been really important. And then the other thing that I do is, and this is specifically if, let's say you have a group of guys, or if you're a woman, you have a group of girls that you guys, do your things as a group. And that's great. And there's some real beauty in that. What I've always done, and thankfully I've had the ability and the time to do it, is I've really invested a lot in one-on-one time within the group. So I have John I go on a surf trip with. Newton I go play golf with. It's different for each one. So while the group and I have a deep relationship, I have a special relationship with each one of them. And that might not be I do something one-on-one with them every week, every month, maybe just even once a year, or maybe every 2 years. But we have that deep relationship. So making those special memories one-on-one is super important.
And then when you say vulnerable, what do you mean?
Well, I think the thing is a lot of guys, it's not just about admitting when you're wrong or the fears you have. I mean, these are obviously ways of being vulnerable. I think that the ways that have had the biggest impact on my friendships is really explaining when I feel like I'm an imposter. When I feel like all the things that you talked about earlier that are deep inside that you're afraid you don't want anyone else to see. When you tell those things, the things that you wouldn't want anyone to know, that's the key to the vulnerability. If you tell the easy things, then it just kind of gets glossed over. But if it's what's the thing that if this person knew about me, I don't think they would want to be my friend anymore. You tell them that. And if they steal your friend, then it's great. And if they're not, then you just save yourself a lot of time. But that's the thing that can really, really take a friendship to the next level.
So
that, and also what Pat said, and just showing up for people.
Showing up.
Just really showing up. Another thing that I think is great. I think our friend Ian, our friend Chris Tuff, there's a lot of people I'm thinking of, Mark Fujiyama, that do this extremely well. And that is, if you can help a friend, help them.
Yeah.
Like I have all kinds of relationships and contacts. Like write down your 10 friends or 5 friends or 1 friend.
Yeah.
And what is the thing that or there is just say from a vocation perspective or from, some kind of goal. What is the thing they're really working on?
Right.
And is there any way with your resources, help, relationships, you can help them?
Yes.
And just spend 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But I do think this is something that everyone can take away is make that list, whether it's 1 friend, 2 friends, 20 friends, whatever. And it could be family members too.
Sure.
And like, what's just one thing you could do this week to help them out?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
I
the
love
best.
That.
It feels, it's not only great for them, it feels so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it creates that connection. And I think just to distill what you're saying, maybe send someone a video, or what I'm hearing you say too is just be cool. Like be cool, be a friend to the friend. Like think about like, is there some way I could help, reach out, do something? It doesn't have to be elaborate.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be when they're going through a hard time.
Right.
It also could be like really helping them when they have momentum.
Yeah.
So like one of the episodes in the last 7, I think it was the last one, is Paul Conti.
Yeah.
And his whole book is about, focusing on the things that are going right.
Yeah.
Not the things that are going wrong.
Right.
And so I think that's also is like sometimes we think about, let's focus on the friend that's really suffering.
Right.
And that takes energy and that's fine.
Yeah.
But also like, what are the friends that are like really kicking ass? And you're like, I can help it even more.
Yes.
I can get them even more momentum.
Yes. Yes. I love that. And then another thing that you talked about intention, doing things with groups.
Yeah.
But then one-on-one time.
Yeah.
Being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Being vulnerable with the hard stuff, not just the good victory stuff. I think for guys, we tend to go there easier. And so in those friendship moments, being sure to be open, honest, real, authentic. I mean, that's how we build the deep connections.
Totally.
I love that. You had 2 guests that talked about caterpillars, chrysalis, and butterflies.
Yes.
People think about midlife being a chrysalis. You have this caterpillar in our 20s and 30s and early 40s, we're toiling away.
Yeah.
What happens with a caterpillar before it goes into the chrysalis is it's eating more. It's plumping up. It's consuming.
Yeah.
And it's doing.
Yeah.
And it's going out there and being, a good trooper and being an achiever, a striver.
Chip talked about it in this state of like eating a lot and achieving and like, it's like this growth, thriving state. And then of course, eventually it turns, it goes through a process, a transformation. And Alexi talked about that as well.
Do you know that when a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, it doesn't just go into the chrysalis and become a butterfly. It becomes total liquid.
Gooey mess.
Gooey mess, right?
Mess.
The middle stage is this liquefaction goop kind of stage. And in a way, it's like a death. Yeah, it's a death.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
It's no longer the caterpillar.
Yeah, literally.
It's just gooey mess.
Yeah.
In the cocoon, in the chrysalis,
And the gooey mess then somehow transforms and has to fight its way out of the cocoon, which is hard.
Yeah.
But the fight gives it the strength. And this makes me think of you, and we've talked about this before, but in a lot of ways, you're this alchemist of like converting challenging situations into something more.
Yeah.
Or where the crisis becomes the opportunity to grow. Or I think I was reflecting about Kevin Love. I like how, he realized that the panic attack that he wanted to hide became the thing that gave his life this deeper purpose.
Yeah.
And suddenly he's doing all these amazing things, right? Yeah. So I'm curious in your own journey, we've heard you talk about this, but I want to hear a little bit more from you, then also help us understand how we can make it through the liquefaction, the death, and then somehow convert that into something more.
Yeah. I mean, I think the part about this process of a caterpillar to a butterfly that I think is the most important piece is realizing that when the butterfly is starting to develop wings, that it is extremely difficult and it almost kills them because of the amount of energy they have to exert to use those wings to break the cocoon.
Yeah.
And if it was easy to get out of the cocoon, the wings would not develop the strength, and then they would get out of the cocoon and they wouldn't be able to fly and they would die.
Yeah.
And so literally the thing that seems the hardest, like Kevin Love's panic attack or my 7 years of depression and year and a half of suicidality, was the thing that then allowed me to, when I got out, to be able to do all the things that I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And so I think that's so important because we can think about, oh, I no longer a gooey mess, I'm a butterfly. I just want to get out. But that actually is just one step. Building the muscle, going through the pain of reinvention, is what allows you to then, fly or walk or whatever analogy you want to use. Yeah. And so I think that, Alexi talks about this. Chip spends his whole life basically helping people through what he calls this liminal state, where you're not one thing, but you're not another. And so you don't know really what you are. Like they don't talk about this in nature. The butterfly eventually dies.
Yeah.
It doesn't just become the caterpillar again. But I kind of think if I looked at my life, I kind of see a few of these cycles. Obviously this last one the biggest, and hopefully I don't go through that again in that level of severity.
Yeah.
But I do think it's really important that just because you turn the corner doesn't mean that you're out of the woods.
Yeah, it's easy street. Yeah, and you have this quote in the gym, you have it in the sauna, don't skip the struggle.
Yeah, but it's interesting, the quote is not don't skip the struggle.
Okay.
It's stop trying to skip the struggle.
Right.
Which is really important because what that's telling me in the affirmation reason I have in the gym and is like, no, the struggle is where the juice is. So stop trying to avoid it. Stop trying to numb it.
Yes.
Stop trying to not look inside.
Yes.
Stop trying, it's stop trying to skip the struggle. That's where we get ourselves into trouble.
Yes. So stop trying to skip the struggle. In a way, McConaughey talked a lot about this. It's embracing the struggle.
Yeah.
It's shaking hands with the struggle.
Yeah.
It's welcoming the struggle. It's saying it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
To get to where we want to be bright and brilliant and strong, it's a difficult path.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of this podcast series and theme. All these guests, none of them said, "Oh, no problem. Here's a quick solution. Here's a magic pill." No magic pill. Yeah.
No one brought one yet.
Yeah, no one has. I mean, there's a lot of different ideas, different for all of us. Alexi talks about the crock pot. We haven't talked about that yet.
I came to think of myself as a slow cooker. I had to throw a lot of things into it and then wait a very long time. If I looked inside mid-cook, it might not appear as though anything was happening. It would have been frustrating to peek into the pot too often, which is why it was important not to evaluate myself based on how I felt on any one day.
Yeah.
And she talks about these many different things that come together for healing.
Yeah.
And that it's not one and done.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to it.
Totally.
And some people, I think, when they hear that, they're discouraged. Because I remember you saying when you got your bipolar diagnosis, you were like, great, now I know what the problem is, now I know the solution.
Yeah.
But when you don't have the quick solution, when you don't have the diagnosis, when you're stuck and you're like, great, there's no magic pill. Because sometimes we say it like, no magic pill, like, yay.
Yeah.
But I think some people say, really?
Yeah.
There's no magic pill? Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
What do you say to that person?
I would say, I'm sorry and I'm not. And the reason is I'm sorry because it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. You're probably going to have to dig deeper than you've ever had to dig before. And if you can just stick with it, if you can just start implementing some of these simple tools and practices that we talk about on the show or our guests have shared, you can build that one in a row, you can build that momentum, and you will get through it. And you will look back and see that was all some way divinely created for your growth and evolution. And so I'm sorry because I've been there and it's not fun, it's hard, and it can potentially take your life away. And I'm not because I know what's on the other side. And even though I know what's on the other side, I would say within that, it is never a destination. Like I am still on this healing journey. Today, I am feeling great. Last week, I had some tough days. Some days I'm like holding on to this Neff bracelet like my life depends on it. Other days, I forget that it's there. And so there is no magic pill, and yet there are a lot of tools, and there's a lot of people that have gone down this path before us. There's a lot of lessons to be learned, and there's a lot of support if you can get the courage to ask for it.
Love that. As we near the close, what are 3 of those tools or tips or bits of wisdom that you have gained from these episodes? What really stands out to you?
2 of the things that really stand out are in some ways diabolically opposed. So one is really invest some time in spending time alone. Get to know yourself. Ask yourself with every thought, is this true? How do I know this is true? You know, and if this is true, how does it change or not change things? Like really, really take the time to slow down so much so that you can really know yourself. And I would say when you're in that quiet space by yourself, really get clear with what your vision for your life is. Because there's no way, whether you believe in God, the universe, quantum energy, whatever you believe could help you on this journey, it can't help you unless you're not first extremely clear with where you want to go and what you want to do. So number 1, get that time alone. Number 2 is invest in friendships. By far, the greatest investment in my life have been relationships. The one like ours, like all my other friends, the people who helped me get through the hard time, the Mark Fujiwamas of the world, the Tyler Ramseys. I mean, these were lifelines. And I would say, especially, really at any age, but I was going to say, especially if you're younger, invest in them now because you will need them. Life is not easy. There will come a time, where you will be depressed. You will be having a panic attack or something like your parents are going to pass, and that's going to be really hard. And you're going to need that friend to lean on when you're grieving. And so invest in those friendships, be vulnerable, be a good friend, and really cultivate that time. And I would say those are the 2 themes that really came up in several different episodes, but I think really are the things that, at least in these first 7 episodes, I would say that I'm going to continue to put my attention on.
I love that. And then I asked you for 3. Can I add a third in?
Sure, please.
The third thing that comes to mind for me as I really, I got to be at the episodes and listen to them and write about them is this idea of the commonality, that you are not alone.
Yeah.
And remember that. That is really deeply, deeply important.
Yeah.
That whatever you're going through, you're not alone. Part of the reason you're doing this, we're doing this, is to share that message and to share that we are all in this together.
Yeah.
And part of that means, I think, just taking a breath and realizing that no matter how hard it is, people have been here, they've been through this. And maybe I would add that there's, like you said, there's a path forward.
Yeah.
And that, maybe this sounds kind of cheesy, but our hope, or my hope, is that we are there for whoever's listening.
Yeah.
As a community, as a resource. And that this, I think maybe it might be interesting to hear from you as a last question is, why the heck do the podcast? You don't have to do this. You don't have to do anything. So why are you doing it?
I think there's this amazing, you used the word alchemy earlier. I think there's this amazing opportunity to transform your mess into your message, your suffering into your meaning. Kevin Love talked about it. I feel like it's so much easier on my personal healing journey to make sense of everything that I went through if I can attach a purpose to it. And I think the purpose is helping everyone, to what you said, realize we're not alone and that we can all learn from each other. There's no magic pill. But if we share these practices, if we do these things together, we can help each other heal, and we can do what my favorite quote, you've had some great quotes today, but I think my favorite quote, maybe of all time, is from Ram Dass. And I'll end this first conversation that we're going to have of hopefully many about this. He says, the whole point of this experience, the whole point of this journey is we're just walking each other home. And I think in some ways, this is my way of helping some people walk home. If this episode spoke to you, please share it with a friend, family member, or someone you love. Because No Magic Pill is not just a podcast. It's a resource to help us all live better lives. Hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode, and let us know what you think by leaving a comment. A quick note that this episode is for informational and entertainment purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare professional regarding any medical questions or concerns you may have.